Stop buying duck feed entirely, and that statement is meant completely seriously right now. That bag of commercial feed costing $25 to $40 every couple of weeks can mostly disappear. 7 specific trees can replace almost all of it while also fixing your mud pit and cleaning your water. They shade the pen through summer and build a system that improves every single year instead of getting worse. Most duck owners simply accept 2 things as permanent fixtures of ownership: endless mud and a rising feed bill. Both of those assumptions were accepted here too, for longer than they probably should have been. The pen looked like a swamp, and the feed costs kept climbing every single month without fail. Then 7 trees went into the ground, and the entire situation changed within a few short years. By the end of this video, you will know exactly which 7 trees to plant in a duck pen. You will understand why each one works and how together they slash a feed bill down toward almost nothing. You will also learn the old farming logic behind this system that commercial agriculture buried on purpose. This isn't theory, this actually happened, and the results are laid out step by step below. Here is something nobody mentions. When someone first brings ducks home, the feed bill never stops growing. A small starting flock might only cost $20 a month in feed, which feels completely manageable at first. But ducks eat considerably more than chickens do, and that difference adds up fast. An adult duck goes through roughly 6 to 8 ounces of feed every single day without exception. That kind of monthly cost creeps up quietly until an entire year of feeding gets tallied together. Scale that across a modest flock of 8 ducks, and a 50-pound bag disappears every 10 to 12 days. At current prices, that works out to $30 to $45 per bag purchased. That lands somewhere around $90 to $135 every single month for feed alone. Over a full year, that adds up to more than $1,000 just to keep 8 ducks fed. And if feed prices spike again, the way they did back in 2022 and 2023, the number climbs even higher. Now add the mud problem into the mix, since ducks and standing water go together naturally. They splash, they dabble, and they turn every square foot of bare ground into slippery mess within weeks. Once that ground becomes compacted mud, nothing grows there anymore at all. No grass, no clover, no insects, just wet dead earth that smells terrible and breeds bacteria constantly. That creates an ugly cycle, paying more for feed because nothing grows in the pen to supplement it. And nothing grows in the pen precisely because the ground itself has already been destroyed by traffic. Most people try fixing mud with straw, wood chips, or gravel, and those materials work for about 2 weeks. Then the ducks turn all of it into soggy mush that needs replacing all over again. More material gets hauled in, more money gets spent, more labor gets done, and the pen still looks awful. Straw, chips, sand, even grass seed planted directly into the pen 3 separate times all got tried here. The ducks ate every single sprout before it ever had a real chance to establish itself. Frustration built up quickly, along with money that really did not need to be spent this way. It started to feel like a permanent mud pit was simply the price of keeping ducks at all. That assumption turned out to be completely wrong, and the actual solution had been hiding in plain sight. Here is what most people never realize. Farmers raised ducks under trees long before commercial feed existed. Reading that history changes how anyone looks at an empty, muddy duck pen, sitting unused right now. This was never an accident. It was deliberate design refined over generations of careful observation. In 18th century England, farmers ran ducks through their orchards as an entirely standard practice. Ducks ate fallen fruit, slugs, snails, and insects, while trees provided shade and windbreak in return. That constant supply of natural food came alongside duck manure that fed the trees right back. It formed a closed loop: 0 feed purchased, 0 mud, and it worked reliably for generations. In Southeast Asia, this exact system goes back even further into agricultural history. Rice paddy farmers across China and Vietnam integrated ducks with tree crops for over 1,000 years. Mulberry trees, fruit trees, and bamboo dropped leaves and fruit that ducks ate alongside insects underneath. Manure from those same ducks fertilized the next growing cycle without a single purchased input. Entire villages fed their flocks without ever buying a single grain of commercial feed at all. This was never primitive. It was intelligent design, refined carefully over centuries of practice. When commercial agriculture took over during the mid-1900s, this knowledge quietly got buried. Feed companies needed customers dependent on their product, so the message became remarkably simple. Ducks need commercial feed, full stop, buy the bag, and stop asking further questions about it. Most people listened to that message for years, including everyone running this exact duck pen. That closed-loop mindset is really the foundation everything else in this system gets built on. But the old farmers already had this figured out long before any of that marketing existed. Trees are not decoration inside a duck pen. They function as genuine infrastructure for the whole system. They serve as the feed system, the drainage system, and the pest control system all in one package. Once that idea clicked, fighting the mud stopped and planting trees started in earnest instead. First, the mulberry tree, the single most powerful tree that can go into any duck pen. Believing this tree could really do what people claimed took actually seeing it happen firsthand. Mulberry trees produce enormous amounts of fruit once they mature into a full-grown specimen. A mature tree can drop 60 to 100 pounds of berries across a single season alone. Ducks go absolutely wild for these berries, eating them straight off the ground with the zero processing needed. Mulberries fruit across a long window, roughly 6 to 8 weeks depending on local climate conditions. That is nearly 2 months where ducks eat fresh, nutrient-dense fruit every day, without any extra effort. Historically, mulberry trees formed the backbone of duck and poultry systems across China for over 1,000 years. Farmers planted them along pond edges and let fruit fall directly into the water below. Ducks fed themselves entirely during fruiting season without needing a single bag of purchased feed. Plant a mulberry on the south-facing side of the pen, where it gets full sun exposure. That single tree alone often justifies planting the rest of this entire 7-tree system. Give it roughly 15 feet of space, and within 3 to 4 years, it becomes genuinely productive. That single tree alone can noticeably cut a summer feed bill once it reaches maturity. Second, white willow, and if mulberry handles feeding, willow handles drainage completely on its own. This is the tree that genuinely kills a mud pit once it establishes itself properly. A single mature willow absorbs 50 to 100 gallons of water daily through its root system. That is not an exaggeration. One tree pulling 100 gallons out of the ground every day. That standing water and soggy ground that never seems to dry gets consumed like a sponge. Willow roots actively pull moisture from soil, which firms up the ground even after heavy rain. Old European farmers planted willows along every drainage ditch and pond edge for good reason. They understood willows regulate water better than almost any man-made drainage system ever could. And once planted, these trees cost absolutely nothing further to maintain going forward. Plant a willow in the lowest, wettest corner of the pen where water naturally collects. That is exactly where the willow performs its best work, draining excess moisture from the soil. Willows can start from simple cuttings, just a fresh branch pushed into wet ground during early spring. No nursery trip required, and no cost involved beyond finding a healthy branch to start with. Watching a tree pull that much water daily out of standing mud is genuinely hard to believe at first. One warning applies here: willow roots spread wide, so keep them 30 feet from septic or water lines. Third, elderberry, a tree most duck owners overlook entirely. And that oversight is a genuine mistake. Elderberry bushes grow remarkably fast, reaching 6 to 12 feet within just 2 to 3 years. They produce clusters of small dark berries that ducks readily eat whenever they fall. But the real value here is not the berries. It comes down entirely to insects instead. Elderberry flowers attract enormous numbers of beneficial insects during their blooming season each year. Flies, beetles, moths, and their larvae swarm. Elderberry blooms in massive numbers throughout the season. Every single one of those insects counts as high-protein duck food available completely free. Ducks patrol underneath the elderberry canopy all day, picking off bugs without any effort required. That free protein directly replaces the single most expensive ingredient inside commercial feed formulas. Old English hedgerow farmers understood this and planted elderberry along the edges of poultry runs specifically. The flowers pulled bugs in, the birds ate them, and no purchased feed was ever required. Plant elderberry along the fence line in groups of 3 to 5 plants spaced 6 feet apart. They form a dense hedge that also functions as a natural windbreak for the whole pen. They tolerate wet feet well, meaning they thrive in conditions that kill most other plants nearby. That single change in mindset, from fighting mud to planting trees, is where everything turned around. Free protein arriving on its own schedule removes one of the biggest recurring costs in poultry keeping. Fourth, fig tree, an ancient food source for poultry that works beautifully inside a duck pen. A single fig tree can produce 30 to 50 pounds of fruit across one full season. Figs that fall to the ground, split open into soft, sticky, sugar-rich meals ducks devour instantly. Unlike fruits needing to be cut or processed first, fallen figs are ready to eat immediately. The mechanism here comes down to energy density, since figs pack natural sugars and carbohydrates. During late summer and early fall, ducks need extra calories preparing for molting season and winter. Figs provide exactly what commercial feed would supply during that window, at zero additional cost. Roman farmers planted fig trees in their poultry yards more than 2,000 years ago. This ranks among the oldest documented tree and bird pairings anywhere in agricultural history. It worked then, and it still works just as well right now in a modern duck pen. Plant a fig on the most sheltered side of the pen, ideally near a south-facing wall. If located in Zone 7 or colder, choose a cold-hardy variety able to survive harsher winters. Fifth, Hackberry, a genuinely forgotten homestead tree that stays almost criminally underused in duck systems. This tree produces thousands of small, sweet berries every single fall without much maintenance required. Ducks eat those berries eagerly, but the real advantage lies in how tough this tree actually is. Figs falling daily during peak season can noticeably reduce how much feed gets scooped out each morning. It ranks among the toughest, most low-maintenance trees available, tolerating poor soil and wet ground easily. It handles drought, wind, and general neglect. Essentially everything a duck pen can throw at it. The berries themselves carry high fat and calorie content, making them genuinely valuable food. Native communities historically relied on hackberry fruit as a dense calorie source through harsh winters. If it sustained people through difficult seasons, it will absolutely sustain a flock of ducks too. Hackberry also develops a wide spreading canopy that provides genuinely excellent shade coverage. That summer shade can keep a pen 10 to 15 degrees cooler during the hottest months. Heat-stressed ducks eat less, lay fewer eggs, and get sick more often during summer heat. Shade alone can increase egg production by 10 to 15% during those hot months. Plant hackberry near the center of the pen if space allows, giving it 20 feet of room. It grows slowly at first, but becomes a genuine powerhouse tree by roughly year 5. Sixth, black locust, a tree that works underground in a way that changes almost everything else. This tree does not feed ducks directly. Instead, it feeds everything else that feeds the ducks. Black locust fixes nitrogen, pulling it from the atmosphere and depositing it directly into the soil. Every plant growing near it, the clover, grass, and weeds ducks graze, grows thicker and more nutritious. A tree this tough, thriving in conditions that kill everything else, is worth planting for that reason alone. All of that happens without anyone ever needing to add a single bag of fertilizer. Instead of buying fertilizer for forage and buying feed to supplement it, one tree solves both problems. Traditional European silvopasture farmers planted black locust as the anchor tree in every grazing system. It enriched the pasture beneath it, which made grazing animals healthier and reduced overall input costs. This tree functioned as the foundation species holding the entire grazing system together. Black locust wood is also incredibly hard and rot-resistant once it falls or gets pruned. Fallen branches make fence posts that last 30 years without any chemical treatment applied. Plant black locust along the perimeter of the pen, spacing trees 12 to 15 feet apart. Keep it pruned to manage canopy size, letting enough light through for ground cover to thrive. Seventh and final, Serviceberry, the perfect finishing tree that ties this entire system together. It fruits early, while mulberry, fig, and hackberry produce food mainly in summer and fall. Serviceberry produces sweet, blueberry-like fruit during late spring, covering the one gap in the calendar. Spring is exactly when nothing else is producing yet, and feed bags still get reached for. A mature serviceberry produces 10 to 20 pounds of fruit that ducks eat whole and eagerly. They eat straight off low-hanging branches or directly off the ground beneath the tree. Cooler summer shade also means less stress on a flock during the hottest weeks of the year. That fruit carries vitamins and antioxidants supporting egg production right as laying season ramps up. Colonial American farmers planted serviceberry, often calling it shadbush, along every fence line and animal run. It was considered essential infrastructure rather than decoration, fruiting early and feeding whatever grazed beneath it. Plant serviceberry along the edges of the pen in small clusters for best results. They stay relatively compact, 10 to 15 feet tall, so they will not overwhelm a small space. They also tolerate partial shade, meaning they can sit beneath the canopy of larger trees nearby. Combine all 7 trees together, and fruit becomes available from spring straight through fall. Shade covers summer, drainage runs year-round, nitrogen builds permanently, and insects replace purchased protein. Being completely honest here, the first time this idea got mentioned, it sounded like wishful thinking. The pen was a genuine disaster, pure mud thick enough to suck boots off with every step. Roughly $110 a month went toward feed for 8 ducks during that period. Straw got hauled in every other week trying to manage the mess without much success. Questioning whether ducks were even worth the trouble felt reasonable given how things looked at the time. A friend running a small permaculture operation suggested planting mulberries and willows directly in the pen. That suggestion got laughed off immediately, since ducks destroy anything planted before it reaches a foot tall. Richer soil beneath one tree quietly benefits every other plant growing anywhere nearby it. The advice that followed was simple. Cage each tree with basic wire fencing until it matured. Just hardware cloth wrapped around each trunk for the first 2 to 3 years of growth. So that approach actually got tried, starting with a mulberry, 2 willows, an elderberry cluster, and a fig. Each one got protected with wire cages that first spring, and then patience became the only option. The first year, not much changed at all. Trees stayed small, and the ground stayed muddy. Feed was still being purchased regularly, and giving up on the whole idea felt tempting. By the second summer, the willows had grown fast, gaining roughly 6 feet in a single season. Ground near those willows started drying out noticeably for the first time in years. The elderberry buzzed with insects, and ducks began spending hours underneath it, simply foraging around. By year 3, the mulberry fruited for the first time in its short life. Ducks ate themselves full for 6 straight weeks, without touching the feed trough even once. The feed bill dropped from $110 a month down to under $40. During peak fruiting season, that number dropped to nearly 0 for several weeks straight. That result turned complete skepticism into genuine conviction about this entire approach going forward. Now here are the mistakes worth avoiding, the ones seen repeated constantly by other people trying this. A duck pen that once smelled of stagnant mud eventually starts smelling like an actual orchard instead. Spring fruit closing that seasonal gap is often the detail people appreciate most once it happens. First mistake, planting without protection, which is genuinely the biggest one to avoid entirely. Plant a young tree directly in a duck pen with no barrier, and ducks strip bark within days. They eat the leaves and trample roots before the tree has any real chance to establish. Every single tree needs a wire cage around its trunk for the first 2 to 3 years. Simple hardware cloth, roughly 3 feet wide wrapped in a circle, costs about $5 per tree. Skip that step entirely, and every single tree planted will eventually get destroyed. Second mistake, planting only one species instead of building genuine seasonal coverage across the calendar. Plant nothing but mulberries and fruit only lasts 6 to 8 weeks with nothing the rest of the year. The entire point of 7 trees is coverage stretched across every single season of the year. Serviceberry covers spring, mulberry and elderberry cover summer, fig and hackberry cover fall. Willow and black locust work year-round, handling drainage and soil fertility in the background. One species functions as a snack, while 7 species together function as a genuine system. Third mistake, ignoring proper spacing between trees because the pen space feels limited at first. Crowded trees compete for light and water, produce less fruit, and create overly dense canopy cover. That dense canopy stops ground cover from growing at all underneath the trees. Seeing willows drain standing water for the first time is usually the moment skepticism starts fading. Follow the spacing guidance given for each tree, and if only 4 or 5 trees fit, start there. Expansion can always happen later, once the first batch of trees becomes established properly. Fourth mistake, expecting instant results from what is genuinely a 2 to 3 year system. Trees need real time to establish themselves before delivering any meaningful return on the investment. Giving up after one season because the feed bill has not changed yet means quitting before payoff. Patience is simply the price paid for building a permanent, self-sustaining solution like this one. Picture a duck pen 3 years from now under this exact 7-tree system. The mud is completely gone, since willow roots have thoroughly drained the surrounding soil. Grass and clover grow thick under the canopy of a black locust feeding nitrogen since the day it was planted. Ducks wake up each spring and eat serviceberries straight off the branch without any encouragement. Summer brings mulberries by the pound, alongside elderberry bushes, crawling with insects for the taking. By fall, figs and hackberries drop daily, while the flock barely glances at the feed trough anymore. The feed bill has dropped from roughly $1,000 a year down to under $200. That leaves $800 back in pocket every single year, with savings growing as trees mature. Ducks stay healthier, their eggs turn out richer, and yolks grow darker from a diverse natural diet. Every mistake listed here came from direct experience rather than second-hand guessing about what might happen. Here is the part that matters most about this entire approach compared to anything else. This system does not wear out, does not need replacing, and does not get more expensive over time. It only gets more productive as every single year passes by naturally. Each year, those trees grow bigger, fruit harder, and shade deeper across the entire pen. Something permanent gets built here, something self-sufficient that older generations of farmers would immediately recognize. So here is the real question. Which of these 7 trees would go into a pen first? Drop that answer in the comments along with a climate zone for anyone wanting specific advice. If this changed how ducks and mud pits get thought about, hit that subscribe button right now. New breakdowns covering proven self-sufficiency systems go up every single week without exception. A duck pen never has to stay a permanent mud pit, and a feed bill never has to keep climbing either. A system built with real patience tends to reward that patience many times over in later years. Plant the trees, protect them properly, stay patient, and let the system do the work over time. Older generations already perfected this exact approach long before commercial feed ever existed. All that's left now is putting it back to work on your own piece of land.